Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Path of Exile 2 Skills. Today we're going to be taking a look at another one of the Path of Exile 2 skills, and this is probably the most Diablo 2 style skill that I've seen in the game, which is literally Volcano, which not only looks exactly like the original Volcano in Diablo 2, but performs exactly like the original Volcano in Diablo 2. It does have some added secrets that we can potentially talk about, but for the most part, like, it is literally the D2 Volcano. If you're familiar with the D2 Volcano, then you already know what's going on. Let's talk about the skill, though. Let's look at the tags, let's look at how it works, and let's get into the nitty-gritty. So it's an AoE, it is a projectile, it is sustained, it is a fire duration, and it is also a channeling skill as well, because you can technically channel the ability, but you don't have to. It says uplift a volcano from the earth, damaging enemies standing on it and releasing a spray of molten projectiles. While the volcano persists, slamming, which is a melee attack that causes basically a big slam area, will cause another projectile spray. Channeling this skill for longer makes the initial eruption more violent, but does not affect subsequent projectile sprays. Which makes the channeling kind of useless in my opinion, because it takes a really long time to channel the ability. So if I want to cast it, right, I get a little projectile spray from the beginning, and then it shoots out individual projectiles after that, right? Well, if you channel it, it takes 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you get a larger explosion, but at the same time, it takes you a while to get that larger explosion, and I'm not exactly sure that it's really worth the extra time that it takes to cast the ability. And since it doesn't actually affect any of the subsequent sprays, it's kind of poopy. So let's get to the slamming, right? So every single time you cast the volcano, the initial cast of the volcano has this blast, right? So there's a initial blast of the volcano, and then it starts to shoot out more slowly after the initial blast. Well, when you slam next to a volcano, you can force another blast to come out every single time a slam hits the volcano, which is how the mechanic works. So while the volcano does function exactly like the D2 volcano in many ways, you can also force it to get more projectiles by slamming around it. And you notice that it says it fires a projectile once every 0.5 seconds. And channeling ends when reaching 4 stages. So there's 4 different stages to reach as far as channeling is concerned. Eruption radius is 1.2 meters. The volcano duration is 8 seconds and uses a limit of 1 volcano. 150% more eruption damage per additional stage. So you do get a lot of additional damage on the eruption if you wait. So you actually get, what is that, the total? It's 150% times 4, so it's 600% more eruption damage per stage. However, the eruption is only the initial portion of the damage that the ability does. I'm not exactly sure. I think I tested around with it, and the 600% more for the initial stage was kind of nice, but then you lost so much damage not being able to cast multiple volcanoes. I don't know if there's a middle ground here where you can speed up your channeling and try and get the channeling to go faster so that you can get your stages easier or whatever. I don't know. The projectiles themselves. So fires 4 projectiles. Impact radius is 0.6 meters. Fires projectiles every 0.5 seconds or when slammed. Initial eruption fires 4 additional projectiles per additional stage, and volcano is destroyed after 10 slams total. So if you slam multiple times with this volcano, it's going to kill itself, right? So I can make volcano, and I can put down my little totems to slam, and they will slam the volcano multiple times. And every time they slam the volcano, I get basically 1 less on the slam total. Now, my particular volcano, I was kind of setting it up different than a normal volcano. I had converted it to cold damage, and you can see that I also have a 1.3 meter eruption radius, and my volcano radius is much less. It's 6.96. And this is because I'm using skill effect duration negative, which is overabundance. So overabundance decreases the duration, but also increases the number of volcanoes that I can cast. So the normal limit on volcanoes is 1. You can only have 1 volcano, which is just this. That's it. Boom. Just 1 volcano. And then if you try to cast the second one, it will replace the first one, which is kind of poopy. If you want to increase that limit, though, there are a lot of ways that you can increase the limit. So one of the ways that I'm using right now is the +2 limit for elemental skills, multiplying Squalls, which is, of course, on the Stormweaver. You can also utilize things like Overabundance, which will give you 1 more to the limits. And that, of course, is including the original 1 limit. So right now I currently have 1, 2, 3, 4. There's also an amulet, I believe, that gives +1 to limit, and some other various things. Overall, like, the number of volcanoes that you can have on the battlefield at any given time is actually pretty cool. And if you have somewhere to slam, you can cause the additional eruptions, which are actually really good. The problem is that, like, from my experience, so when you look at the eruption, the initial eruption is only upon cast. So this is only when you actually cast the ability. Later, when you slam, you can cause it to fire more projectiles, right? So it says right here, fires projectiles every 0.5 seconds or when slammed, right? So it's not erupting again when you slam it, it's just firing more projectiles, which they do actually do some pretty good damage. And one of the things I definitely noticed is, just like in Diablo 2, you kind of want to cast it right underneath the monster's butthole, Volcanus under your anus, because it does seem to do a very nice initial damage pump when it's cast. So, you know, like, for instance, let's pretend that the waypoint is the monster. You want to get, like, all of them right underneath the butthole of the monster, cast your slam totem, and then probably cast some more. It really doesn't matter. Spamming them, honestly, has a much better effect than just simply letting them run, because let me show you. Right, if you cast it, you get this huge initial eruption, right? And then when it sits there, you get this little baby little, like, beep, beep, boop, 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 right? And it's not really very effective. However, if you were to cast it, right, cast another one, 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 you notice that, like, what we're seeing here is a huge number of projectiles, right, as opposed to a very small number of projectiles, because we're getting the initial eruption more times than we are when we're just simply 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And then you have only the single projectile coming out after that. Whereas if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm basically forcing those initial eruptions more often so I can do more damage. And if you combine that together, of course, with the ability to spam your slammings, so I'm on 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and of course you just got to keep your slams going on, and you can slam in a myriad of ways. The way that I'm currently doing it right now is a Shockwave totem, which is basically just a slam. So I'm using it specifically for slamming, and then I'm also utilizing this right here, which is called the Splinter totem. The Splinter totem makes it so that supported skills can only have 1 active totem at a time, but the totems created by the supported skills can splinter up to 2 times, and the totems can then splinter again. And so what's happening is the totems are slamming multiple times within a quick period of time. So when I cast the first one, I get 1 initial slam, and then I get 2 slams, and then I get 3 slams. And so basically I'm getting a very large number of slams in a short period of time by simply pressing 1 button, which allows me to focus on casting the volcanoes. So I can go 1 and then 1. I hate the channeling on this thing. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then slam. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then slam. And you can really get some crazy damage output with the volcanoes. Now, one of the things that I highly recommend that you do, which I'm currently not doing on this character because it's an older character that I've already, like, de-geared, is the level of the skill. Right? So the level of the skill is very important for how much damage you can potentially output. Like, for right now, I'm currently at 24, which is it's baby numbers. Baby numbers. You need to be a lot higher than this. I would recommend you get upwards of like in the 30s, maybe even like 34 if you can get that high, to push the volcano as high as you possibly can to get as much damage out of it. Might actually be a fun like secondary character just to kind of like start out and play around with a volcano character, because they did add the new volcano spell. Not sure if you've seen that one. It's the same spell as this one, except it's a cold version. We might have to do a video on that one next. Now, channeling. How can you reduce the overall channeling speed of the ability? That's kind of one thing that if you want to use the channel version, which the channel version does have a very nice amount of damage, the problem is that it just doesn't cast very fast, right? So it's a very slow casting channel. In fact, let's go ahead and look at it right now. All right, so it's 1,000, 1,000. That's about 2 full seconds that you've got to hold down the button to get a channeled ability off. Well, I'm pretty sure that you can reduce channeling with, let's check real quick just for fun. So we currently have considered casting on, which reduces our cast speed. So let's remove that. 1,000, 1,000. It's about the same. Let's put on rapid casting. 1,000, 1,000. It's about the same. Is it listed anywhere here, the amount of time it takes per channel? Of course, there's our cast time, 0.46. Yeah. Projectiles. Projectile interval, projectile stages, additional projectiles per stage 4. So there's the stages listed. Let's do a moderately small amount of research here. Let's pull up. Oh yeah, we also need to pull it up here too. Let's take a look at the additional effect of Volcano. There's Fragments of the Past right there. Fragments of the Past is the new cold volcano that you can potentially add in as another ability. It is Runic Ward though, so it's not spell. It's Runic Ward, so you have to build Runic Ward if you want to use it. So Volcano has 20% more skill effect duration. Interesting. So let's see here. PoE 2. So cast speed does affect decreased channeling time, but it looks like we just don't have enough. So I would assume that you would have to get a large amount of cast speed to decrease the channeling time as much as possible. I'm at 0.46 cast time right now. Let's see. Let's just grab, like, cast speed stuff from in here. I don't have cast speed on my amulets. Do we have a cast speed amulet? It's kind of silly to look for this stuff after the fact, but I am kind of interested to see, like, if you could potentially speed up the spell enough. I do have 38% cast speed on the gloves. I'm also using the rapid casting too on the spell. I could have cast speed on both rings. I do have some cast speed on one of the rings. Looks like we have 1 cast speed. We do not have a cast speed in here. Boots and gloves. Man, we got cleared out in here. This is the this is the non-league stash. Apparently our non-league stash is like completely empty. I could have sworn There was a bunch of like regular tabs in here too, but it doesn't matter. I'm pretty sure that if you wanted to utilize the bonus from the 600% more eruption per additional stage, you would have to stack cast speed to the moon to be able to get the channeling time on it as quick as possible. Otherwise, you're just going to end up with just terrible overall damage. The problem is that every single time you're not casting the ability, you're not doing damage, right? So if you have to hold down the button to channel, it's going to be a bigger issue for your overall character. I did find that this was a really fun co-op ability too, so let's talk about that for a second. So, co-op. Co-op is a very interesting thing, like between two characters and trying to like synergize your characters together. Well, because Volcano has the ability to stack essentially based on the number of slams, right? So you get up to 10 slams. Well, you can have somebody with you who is slamming, and there's a bunch of different characters that can slam. Obviously, you can be using a bear, you could be using a warrior with slams. You could be using a werewolf that has the nice pounce that counts as a slam. There's a bunch of different abilities that counts as slams. Well, basically, every single time they slam, they're going to set off your volcanoes as well. Now, when I originally leveled this character, I leveled this character with Leon, and he was using a bear slamming character, and I was using a volcano character. And every time I would place down my volcanoes, he would slam, and we would get so much damage synergy between the two builds because he was doing the slamming and I was doing the full volcanoes. So instead of getting like a crappy volcano, he was actually getting really good volcanoes. And instead of getting crappy slams, there were only once in a while, I was getting really good and large numbers of slams. So I was getting a large number of eruptions, and it was going back and forth, and we were absolutely demolishing bosses, which was very impressive. I honestly think it was one of the more fun like duo combos that I'd set up. Was one person was running volcano and one person was running the bear. It is actually designed to work with the bear, right? That's how they set it up. Was they wanted you to run the bear and run around slamming to set off the volcanoes in the first place. So this is designed with that in mind, right? The projectiles. So let's talk about the projectiles for a second. So the projectiles are just the little tiny things that shoot out of the volcano. So as you can see, it shoots out like one projectile every certain number of seconds. There are abilities that affect projectiles, and I have noticed that those abilities do work with the volcano, but they're kind of funky. Like for instance, I believe I tried like Nova projectiles with it, and let me see if I have a support gem or Nova projectile in here. But things like multi-shots, anything that increases the number of projectiles does seem to work with the ability. The problem is that like most of those things also reduce the damage overall on the character. So even if they do work to increase the number of projectiles that are shooting out, it's not really a large amount of damage. The other problem is that each one of the projectiles has a very small radius, different than the eruption radius, right? So the eruption radius is 1.3 meters, and that's basically how far around the volcano the eruption happens, right? So each one of these little things shoots out, and you can see they shoot out, and they have like a little small circle where they land. Well, each one of those little things landing in the small circle is going to do damage to the monster that it hits in that small area, right? So the projectiles themselves aren't really the most amazing things because they're not really hitting a large area. In fact, I'm pretty sure I can find the projectile range here, which is only 0.7 meters, and that's, of course, I think, with me increasing the radius tremendously. Another thing that you have to take into account is, and this is something that I tested myself, is that as you're messing around with the ability, the size of the ability also determines where those projectiles are landing. So you can make them a little more like concentrated if you go with something that reduces the overall size. But if you go with something that increases the overall size, like for instance magnified area, what you'll notice is that the projectiles are now spreading out further than they were before in a larger area, right? So now the eruption radius If you look at the eruption radius is now 1.5 meters, and so we're getting a larger spread on how they work. So one of the things that I messed around with is concentrated area. Concentrated area is a good one that reduces the size, right? Well, if you reduce the size with concentrated area will make it so that your projectiles land in a smaller area, right? So most specifically around where the volcano is. It also reduces the size of the explosions of the actual, like, projectiles too, unfortunately. But in general, if you're utilizing the concentrated area versus the magnified area, you can focus those projectiles more better around the actual volcano as opposed to spreading them out over the entire map. So whatever you're trying to do with this particular ability, it's kind of hard to get exactly what you want, right? If you scale area of attack size and you scale the impact radius of each one of the projectiles to get the projectiles larger, you're also in turn scaling the size of the eruption radius, which the eruption radius is obviously, when it grows, is going to spread those projectiles out more and make it less likely that they're actually going to hit anything. In fact, it was my experience that the larger the eruption radius got, the less likely they were going to actually hit anything. The smaller the eruption radius, the better they were actually hitting stuff in the area that you were casting the volcano, and you're getting much less area damage, but you could actually cast, like 1, 2, 3, 4, get your slams running, and then, keep casting them in that spot, and you can essentially concentrate all of those explosions in one little area, doing a massive amount of damage in that little zone, as you can see. I didn't necessarily like, though, the two scaled together, because it did make things difficult to actually manipulate the volcano how I wanted it to manipulate, which, in turn, just not really the most fun character. I do want to actually go back and revisit this character, because I feel like my knowledge has grown tremendously since then, and playing around with the character another time could be fun. I'm also not entirely sure I would go with Stormweaver. Stormweaver, I don't think, was the best choice for this particular build. It's okay. You get +2 limit for your volcanoes. So that's neat. But other than that, there's really not a lot more going on in this in this Ascendancy that really helps out what I was trying to accomplish. This is not really the volcanoes. The elemental storm is just something that happens as a result of you casting spells. If I were to go back and retry this build, I might retry it as like an Oracle or, not entirely sure, maybe even Gemling Legionnaire. Gemling Legionnaire has been extremely fun this season. Very powerful character, and I don't know if it would potentially be the best option, but certainly a more fun option, perhaps. It's interesting. It's one that you can add in on a cast-on. It's one that you can use as a melee character. It's one you can build around specifically. And the damage on it is actually really good once you get it running. I know it doesn't seem that way from the panel, but there's a lot of multipliers that you can get. There's a lot of damage going on with this ability, a lot of projectiles. It's kind of hard to know exactly how much damage you're doing until you actually get down into the field and use it on something. Because when you actually see it used on something, you get an idea that, hey, it's doing a lot more damage than it seems to be saying that it's doing. Because, hey, it's actually hitting for a pretty decent amount of damage, right? So, if I were to go out here and actually kill something, and I cast the volcano multiple times, in one spot, throw down a slam, and the monsters try and come get me, I mean, you'll notice that you're getting a rather large amount of damage on the initial burst. You're getting a rather large amount of damage, in the area around the initial burst. You can convert the element to whatever you want to. So in this case, I'm converting it to cold. And you can, of course, start slamming, which is going to give you even more damage. And depending on whether or not you want to use it as an AoE ability or whether you want to use it as more of a single target, is kind of like how you would set that up, right? Because if you want to use it as a single target, you're going to reduce the size, and you're going to focus all of those explosions in one spot. Whereas if you want it to be an AoE ability, you're going to get lots of area of effect, and you're going to get magnified area and a whole bunch of other stuff, and you're going to make it scale differently, right? I think that's pretty much it. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching. Let me know if you have any questions about Volcano. I can try to answer them. I think I've covered just about everything with the ability, but there might be some stuff that I left out. like what kind of supports you would want in it. It depends on what you're doing. Overabundance is actually kind of nice, and the less skill effect duration doesn't hurt it too much because you kind of want to keep recasting it. You don't really just want to cast it and forget it, if that makes any sense, right? Like, so having an additional volcano to cast is good because you can sit there and rotate the volcanoes and you can have like one up and one down. And it doesn't really hurt the skill effect, like duration, even all that much anyway. Like, it's currently 11.6 and it goes down to like 7, so 8, 9, 10, 11, so it's only like 4 seconds less, and you get to cast an additional volcano, which essentially doubles your damage output, and all it requires you to do is just cast it an additional time. Concentrated area, magnified area, all of those things can be good depending on what you're trying to accomplish. Considered casting, I think, is also a really good choice because I generally don't bother channeling in anyway, so I would put considered casting in there. Also, you can utilize efficiency. Efficiency is actually really good because it does cost a lot of mana, and it starts to get extremely high once you have all those multipliers in there. I consider efficiency whenever I'm dealing with high mana cost abilities, but it's something that is going to reduce your overall damage output, so keep that in mind. Embitter is good too if you're running a cold version because you can basically convert all of the extra damage into cold damage, which is nice. So if you're running like the gain as extra of all elements, you can take that, you can convert it all into cold, and you can get more cold damage on your overall effects. As you can see, I'm going from like, was that 4,394 cold to 6,212 cold in this particular instance. It's not like directly a way to increase damage, but it will give you the other damage sources as the damage source that you're trying to stack, right? So in this particular case, I'm stacking cold. I could, of course, remove my blue flame gauntlets and the embitter, and you can see that my cold damage is only 1,785, and I'm actually primarily fire damage, which is what this is for. And then this one, of course, lets me convert all the gain as extras so I can be entirely cold. You can have the volcano be whatever element you want. As always, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe button if you enjoy the content, and keep watching.